last decade, remember, has been a slow and bumpy ride. We took the fast lane between 2004 and 2011 at near 9%, which was obviously punctuated briefly by the 2008 global financial crisis. But the foot appears to have come off the gas pedal. A recent CRISIL report believes that there is a 50% chance growth will average at only 6.5% over the next 5 years, provided even if there is a decisive mandate in the elections. D.K. Joshi, Senior Director and Chief Economist at CRISIL, joins in with more details about this interesting report. Hi Mr. Joshi, thanks very much for joining in. So why do you think that growth, even in a best case scenario of a decisive and stable government, will be capped at 6.5%?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, let's look at the global environment. The global environment is not going to be as supportive as it was during the heydays of 2004 and 2008, when the economy was expanding at close to nearly 9%. So I think the kick from the global growth will be much muted, even though the global economy is on the mend at the juncture. So that is reason number one. Second, I think to support growth, you require a healthy financial sector. And today, if you look at the bank balance sheets, they are not in a position to aggressively finance growth. The infrastructure sector is highly leveraged; it needs to deleverage. So I think these issues will also impair the speed of recovery. Then the third thing, I think, is the investment. The investment cycle will take time to revive, and even if before it starts reviving, I think the efficiency of investment has to go up. If you look at the incremental capital output ratios, they have risen to nearly 8 right now. What it means is that the efficiency of investment, the investments that have been made are not generating the required output. I think that could be due to a number of constraints, bottlenecks like infrastructure related issues, environmental clearance, etc. But it's also because the demand is very weak and the capacity utilization has come down very sharply. So I think as a consequence of this, the fresh investments will not be coming. I think first you have to exhaust the existing excess capacity. So I think these are some of the reasons why the growth push will be there, but the kick will not be very significant.
Sure. Mr. Joshi, hi, good morning. A lot of people believe, but that could be because of what people termed as policy paralysis, not of the last 6 months, but before that for a good 2 to 3 years. Don't you think affirmative action from a new government could lead to changes and something that we might not be able to see right now?
Well, it's always possible, because I think when you forecast ahead, I think you are the psychologists call it recency bias. I think you are greatly influenced by what is going on currently. I think what we have tried to do is we have tried to look at it more realistically and correct it somewhat for efficiency bias, the recency bias also. And I think the conclusion that we reach is that there's 50% chance of 6.5% growth, taking into account various factors, the global environment, the domestic constraints. Even if you start for instance, take the case of Land Acquisition Act. I think it's going to take some time before you come out with a new version and before people gain confidence. So I think that so unless the private sector starts kicking in ahead, I think there are very little signs as of now, and we'll have to see what the government does once it comes to power. A decisive mandate, see, what it can do is it can improve the sentiment. What matters is the policies that follow, and I think we have to wait for those. And we believe that the probability of growth going above 6.5% is only about 20% at this juncture.
So what is the best case scenario of growth, beyond 6.5% according to you?
Well, I think it's around 7%. We don't see the economy going beyond that in the next 5 years.
So wouldn't it also matter on a qualitative basis, Mr. Joshi? Because I'm just taking the example of, say, for example, the Narendra Modi interview that CNBC Awaaz did over the weekend, where we heard Narendra Modi decisively talk about impetus to agriculture, where, for example, the Gujarat state has pushed agri growth to such an extent that it's exceeded the 4% growth that the nation's been doing on an average. So if in case there is an NDA government that comes on board, and that seems to be the case, then do you think that this expectation will just be surpassed based on just the impetus that they might give to, say, something like an agriculture?
Well, I think one has to remember that agriculture will take time to revive. I think you have to put in place a number of factors. Investment in agriculture is required, high-yielding variety of seeds. It requires a combination of things. I mean, even if you are talking of improving irrigation, it's a long gestation project. So the point is that if you do that, I think then you create a road for future prosperity, and I think you can move into a higher growth path going ahead. But immediately, I don't think that's going to happen, and the growth will trail up slowly. And I think our assessment is that it will start with 6% in 2014-15 and end with around 7% in 18-19.
Where does RBI fit into this scheme then, Mr. Joshi? Do you think over the next 6 months to 9 months we are likely to see any kind of rate cuts, or has that been ruled out by the kind of commentary that we had from the RBI in their last policy?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that the economy is very sluggish and there are no counter-cyclical policy tools available. What I mean by is that even the fiscal policy is restrictive right now. You can't expect fiscal policy to push growth ahead. And same is true of monetary policy also, because if you have to adhere to the targets that are being talked about, 6% by 2016, I think for that you'll have to ensure that that monetary policy remains a little bit aggressive, because unless the food inflation is brought strictly under control, the lever for the monetary policy to ease doesn't exist as of now. So my sense is that the both monetary and fiscal policy tools cannot be deployed to kickstart the economy, at least in the next few months.
And what if you factored in from a global perspective, say taking into a point of view, like for example how the US economy would do, how maybe Europe would do, and hence what that could do to, say for example, exports in India?
Well, I think we have taken the world economy we've taken the IMF forecast as a base case, world economy to grow at around 4% over the next 5 years, which is a tad lower than what we experienced during the heydays of 2004 to 2008. I think when the world economy was expanding at close to 5%, the leverage was being expanded. I think things are pretty different right now. The world economic recovery is also on shaky grounds to some extent, because there are fears in China as well. So I think in nutshell, the global environment is not as supportive for us as it used to be. And if we fix the domestic problems, then I think we can definitely create an upside to growth. If you don't fix them, then you can't take advantage of whatever little upturn in global environment that we expect in the next 4 to 5 years. So I think fixing the domestic problems is the key. The global economy will matter for our exports, etc., but we don't expect the kind of surge we saw earlier repeating itself in the next 5 years.
Okay, fair enough, Mr. Joshi. We'll leave it at that. So that's CRISIL talking about the recent report that maybe growth or GDP would be capped at a maximum of 7% in the next 5 years, despite a decisive mandate in terms of a government. But let's focus on a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. We understand from sources that MCX may face a big tax liability